Okie dokie, I thought I'd probably get this on tape. I've made some headway on my printer, and I'm really starting to get things dialed in. I was having problems with these little boogers in my prints, and I finally figured it out. It was layer height. My nozzle was dragging through the previous layer. It wasn't going up high enough. It was a hundredth of an inch fixed the problem, and then dialing in my extrusion rate. But we are gosh darn close to exactly where we need to be. So actually, I think I'm going to make this video for non 3D printer people. So maybe I should give you the full tour here. For non-nerds, there might be some nerdy stuff mixed in. I'm sorry. This is a 3D printer. It's just like a regular printer, except it prints things. Alright, and it does that by doing this. Up here are spools of filament. This is plastic filament. It's 3 millimeters in diameter, okay? And it winds off that spool, and it gets fed in right there into this guy, which is called an extruder. And you can see it spinning around. As that wheel turns, it advances the filament down into the extruder. Then it goes into this, which is called the hot end. And the hot end is, well, hot. It's about 400, well, it's 200 some odd degrees Celsius, almost 400 degrees Fahrenheit, wicked hot. And it has a tiny, teeny little hole. It's a 1/2 millimeter hole that the now molten plastic gets squished out. So as that advances more in, stuff squirts out the bottom. So it's a really fancy hot glue gun, basically, but extremely accurate and extremely fancy. Okay, and then you have 3 axes of motion. You have X, which is the extruder moving back and forth there. You have Y, which is this motor, and the table itself moving forward and back. So that's left and right, forward, back. And then finally, you have these threaded rods controlled by these motors up top, which work in unison to move this entire carriage up as it goes. And it moves up 0.27 of a millimeter each layer. So each layer is 1/3 of a millimeter, basically. Okay, and all it does, like right now, you can see it's doing an outline, and in this case, it's going to do 3 outlines side by side, and then it will fill in the middle. Any outside layer is printed solid, which means all the little the squirted out plastic hits the squirted out plastic next to it, and it becomes a solid sheet. And then once you get up a little bit and within the inside of the thing you're printing, it does not fill it all the way. Like in this case, let's see if I can see in there maybe. I don't know if you can see in there. Yeah, you see it looks like a waffle. I've got this guy being filled at 25%, so it only, you know, it doesn't fill it all the way. There's spaces in between. I'm printing on glass with some pretty magic special tape, and then you can see these little copper stripes. These copper stripes are actually a heater. The bed is heated, which prevents the parts from warping as they're printed. And it's very hot too. It's 100 degrees Celsius, so 200 plus degrees Fahrenheit. And that's it. Oh, and I should also mention that I am printing ridiculously slowly right now. It's capable of speeds almost 10 times this fast. I'm just still dialing in calibrations and getting everything adjusted just right to work. So I've got it going really slow so I can kind of keep an eye on it. Now, all of these little doodads and brackets and all this plastic stuff that comprises the machine, I designed myself, and I actually printed, or actually milled on, there's Walter the robot, on this CNC. This is a computer-controlled milling machine that I also built. I welded everything and built everything from scratch. It has a bit here, a spinning bit, and it's the same thing. This router is able to move sideways, up and down, and then the table is able to move forward and back. So I'm able to put materials on the table and very precisely well, accurate to 5/10,000ths of an inch. I can mill parts out. This CNC is an incredible machine. So I was able to use the CNC machine that I built to go ahead and fabricate all of the doodads. Like, for instance, here's my control panel, and you can see the temperature of the extruder head, and we're up 3.5 millimeters. How long we've been going. It's, again, very slow print. We're at 100% speed, which 100% of a slow speed. And then this is actually a wheel that I can spin. This is an input wheel and a button that I can use to adjust settings and whatnot, even on the fly. There's a robot brain that's controlling the whole thing. It's an Arduino robot brain. These are all of the motor drivers. You can actually see that little guy blinking away. These are the motor drivers, X, Y, and Z. And then this little red one is the one that runs the extruder. These actually make the motors go. And the robot brain tells the drivers how to move the motors, and the motors move accordingly. So that's that. And then finally, this little red circuit board is actually a Bluetooth module, because currently I'm actually printing wirelessly. Here is the print software. This is a representation of what's being printed, and you can see this scroll bar will go up as the layers increase. I can move things manually with a little control panel over here, and here's just a bunch of information and stuff, temperature settings and whatnot. So this host software takes the design, which it can be downloaded, or you can design your own, whatever you want to do, and it sends the the design, or how to do the design, wirelessly via Bluetooth from the Lappy over here to this Bluetooth unit, which then goes into the robot brain, and Bob's your uncle. So, and that's it. Basically, once again, it is just like a regular printer, except it prints 3D things, which is pretty cool. As a matter of fact, this extruder itself was 3D printed. So these machines actually have the ability to replicate themselves, which is pretty cool. And also there's kind of the philosophy of a transporter, where you can take a design file and email it to someone and they can print it. So it's almost like you're sending a physical item dematerialized down into a file. It's kind of a cool way of thinking about it. So so this is it. This is my latest project, the 3D printer. And if you're interested in this kind of stuff, do a Google for RepRap, R-E-P-R-A-P, RepRap, and you can see the model that I designed this guy after, and sort of where I got my inspiration from. Everything's open source. You can get to all the code, which is great. I was able to modify the code slightly to work particularly, with this particular machine, and there you go. So that is my 3D printer. I'll probably do another video with a bunch of technical nerdy stuff in it for technical nerdy people, but for now, for non-nerdy people, yet another project from your friends at RocketBrandStudios.com. Ting!